welcome back to the channel. We're doing a comparison across some of the most popular flamers of Fallout 76. We have the Enclave Plasma Flamer, Slugbuster, Holy Fire, and the new Gatling Plasma Flamer. So we're going to see which one comes out on top. First comparison, we're going to be using some basic legendary modifications, and we're going to be modifying from there to see how high we can get the damage and see if it makes any differences with the ranking when you add the different 4-star legendary effects. So let's jump on into our first comparison, which is mostly vampires, faster fire rate, with the exception of Slugbusters, which of course anti-armor. You can't modify Slugbuster, so let's take a look at how it holds up. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and if you like this kind of content, let me know down in the comments. I don't know about y'all, but I was completely blown away by these results. It wasn't too surprising that the Enclave Plasma Rifle was number 1. You know, that's always been a top performer. But I was surprised that the Slugbuster came in at number 2. And actually the Holy Fire being last was a big surprise. You know, the Gatling Plasma Flamer, I've only seen people talking about it not being great. But the Holy Fire being worse than the Gatling Plasma, at least for a stock, was a big surprise. So let's take a look at what the gap was between Gatling Plasma and Enclave Plasma Rifle to see if we can catch up. So this is the same footage as before. We're just going to focus in on the Enclave Plasma Rifle and the Gatling Plasma. So as we watch the video here, we're going to see that by the time the Gatling Plasma has the behemoth down to about 1/3 health, that's around when the Enclave Plasma finishes it off. So it's about a damage difference of 33%, you know, roughly. So that's not a very wide gap, and I think we can close it with proper 4-mod setup. But let's go ahead and see how the Gatling Plasma and Holy Fire of Pyro compare to see if maybe that 4-star changes the rankings there on the heavy weapon side. Because we're switching gears here to see how the weapons perform with the best mods, I switched the Holy Fire and the Gatling Plasma from Vampires to Anti-Armor, as long as adding the Pyro mod. So these weapons both deal burning damage, so Pyro should have the same behavior on both of them. So let's do a side-by-side comparison between the with Pyro and without Pyro to see if this changes the ranking. So on the left side, we're going to have the Pyro mods on the weapons, and the right side, we're having the same weapons that we compared originally. Alright, so clearly the Holy Fire of Pyro was outperforming the Gatling Plasma of Pyro. At first I was thinking maybe it's because the Holy Fire does more fire damage than the Gatling Plasma, but if you actually look at the Pyro description, it should be boosting all of the damage when the target is burning, and the Behemoth is burning for both weapons. So I'm not really clear on why Pyro is making such a huge difference for the Holy Fire and not the Gatling Plasma, but clearly it did not help the Gatling Plasma regain number 1. If you know why I haven't, let me know down in the comments. But we're going to see if we can close that gap with a different 4-star mod, and we're going to be trying out pinpointers. So pinpointers does 50% more damage when targeting limbs, and I don't believe that needs to be in VAT. So here, the idea is that the flamer spread is so wide, it's going to be hitting limbs most of the time anyway. Let's see if pinpointers brings it back to number 1. Alright, so when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I mean, Pinpointer is there did worse than Pyro on the Gatling Plasma. So the Holy Fire of Pyro is still king of the heavy weapons so far. But what fun is just settling with the existing regime, right? Everybody is using Holy Fire. So let's see if we can get that same damage boost we're seeing on the Holy Fire of Pyro onto the Gatling Plasma by some other means. So far, this testing has been pretty expensive mod-wise. Let's hop onto a custom server and try out some more combinations. So this server is just going to have free crafting. There are no other modifications on it. If it goes well there, I'll make the same change on my adventure character. So here on the custom server, I crafted a full set of Strangler's Heart power armor. The legendary effects aren't important here. What is important is the set bonus. So this bonus adds poison damage to all weapon attacks, which means our Gatling Plasma is going to be dealing poison damage now. So now that we have the poison damage, we can switch from pinpointers to vipers, which gives us 50% more damage to poisoned enemies. This should be identical to what we saw with Pyro. They're both the same damage boost, but let's go ahead and see what happens in the side-by-side comparison. Vipers was clearly outperforming pinpointers there. If you go back and look at the Pyro performance, Vipers was also outperforming Pyro. So let's go ahead and take this back to the adventure server. We'll make the same modification there, and we'll compare against the Holy Fire and see how it's holding up now. Alright, we're in the final stretch. I think after this, we're gonna find out which heavy flamer is the best. There's not really many more modifications we're gonna be able to make. So we're back on the adventure server. We're swapping out pinpointers with vipers to see if we can get that same damage boost that we saw on the custom server. We're also swapping from the large core receptacle to the stinging core receptacle, which adds armor penetration. So that's gonna bring up the damage to the maximum that we're gonna be able to get for the Gatling Plasma without switching off of the flamer nozzle. Since we're using vipers instead of pyro, we don't need the burning damage anymore, and we're gonna include the prime capacitor in the side-by-side comparison, as well as the gamma wave. So we're losing the burning damage, but we're gaining more base damage. We'll see how that holds up. One other change is on Adventure. I really don't want to have to craft a full set of Strangler Heart armor, so we're going to be using the Ultrasight Vulcan Bracers instead to add the poison effect. The description says it only adds poison for melee attacks, but it actually does add it for all weapon attacks, including range. I'm not sure if this is intended, but since it's working right now, this is how we're going to do it. In the future, you might need Strangler Heart for this effect if you're watching and they've patched this out. I'm not sure if you caught that, but the primed Gatling Plasma Flamer with the Vipers mod just barely beats out the Holy Fire. It took a lot of takes to make sure that these comparison videos had roughly the same amount of critical hits and no stagger, get this really clean comparison. And it is a very thin margin, but I'm officially naming the Gatling Plasma the best heavy flamer in Fallout 76. Is the Holy Fire with the Pyro easier to obtain and doesn't require specific armor? Yes. But since Winhab Kings cared about accessibility, we're going to take the same things we learned about Gatling Plasma, namely Vipers being better than Pyro and Prime being better than Gamma Wave. We're going to make those same modifications on the Enclave Plasma Rifle and see what comes out on top. So this is the last comparison to see which flamer rules them all. It's been a lot of fun, a lot of unexpected results. Who knew that the different forest tires could have such big impacts with different weapons? But there can only be one winner. Let's take a look at the results. That's right, the results were the same as they were at the beginning of the video. The gap between these top three are minuscule, but the Enclave Plasma Rifle is number 1, followed by the Prime Gatling Plasma number 2, and finally the Holy Fire number 3. Practically speaking, the Holy Fire is the most obtainable weapon here. The plasma weapons require extremely rare mods to beat out the Holy Fire. You're much more likely just to be running the Holy Fire. Check out my Gatling Plasma mod video and Plasma Rifle video to see where you can get the mods to get these same results. Are you going to be swapping out your flamer to one of these top 3? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you next time.